Took the kids to the basketball court today. 2 blocks away. There was a pickup game going up and down one court. The other court was empty. A couple of dudes shooting on one end. So 4 of the kids and I started shooting around with the other basket. About 5 minutes in, the other 2 kids roll up with their mom. White kids. One a teenager. One 8. They were both brothers. Their mom sat right there, stood right there watching them. They were just shooting around. And I am tempted to speak ill of these kids throughout this video, which is the topic of this video, really. So I'm going to try not to. But I can say that they were definitely the nerdy type. A little clumsy, not great ball players for their respective ages. And just dorky, talk too much, that kind of thing. And I need to stop there in describing them. Boy, I just want to set that stage. So, they were generally unpleasant to be around, but there was an issue between my 6-year-old and the 8-year-old. They were both about the same size. The 8-year-old was kind of a better shot, like barely. But George was just better at everything compared to this kid. Quicker, stronger, got all the rebounds he wanted, because they were kind of shooting the same ball and grabbing it, you know? But this kid, like his sibling, talked the whole time, just talked and talked and talked. And I just kind of ignored it. At one point, my 6-year-old son came to me and, hey, this kid's saying the basketball we play isn't real. Because my kids have played in a league that has these rules to kind of promote constructive play. You know, a lot of 6-year-olds running around with permission to steal the ball, for example, basically leads to a lot of chaos. So this league has decided that it's more constructive not to allow steals, for example. This kid's like, oh, it's not real basketball, and blah, blah. And going on pretty hard about it. His own brother was a little embarrassed about it because, well, I'll just leave it at that. I told George not to worry about it. I sent him back in there. I could tell he was affected by this. So, we're walking home, and I tell all the kids, listen, if some kid is making fun of you, don't come to Dad about it. Just deal with it yourself. If some kid is making fun of one of your siblings or making trouble for your siblings, especially your younger siblings, and you can't solve it yourself, you can involve Dad. But if it's just you deal with it. There's another thing I try to teach the kids. If it's your pride on the line, swallow your pride. If it's someone else on the line, defend them. So I'm telling them this, and I tell them, listen, that kid, he was kind of a jerk. And I don't regret saying that, but I was really pretty mad, and I could tell that it had kind of affected George. Like, I don't play real basketball kind of thing. So here's the thing I think I really regret doing, and the thing perhaps you guys want to think about as well. We got home, and I kind of described to my wife what had happened in front of all the children. I went from the mom to the teenage boy to the 8-year-old boy and just tore them down. Just spoke derisively and condescendingly of each of those 3 people. And it was easy to do. And, George really was impacted by this. Later on, he told me, that kid said I wasn't a good basketball player. And he thought maybe he wasn't a good basketball player. Even though he was the best player on his team last year. So I told him not to worry about it. And when I explained to him that this kid was trying to feel better about himself by tearing other people down, and this light went off in his head. And like he told both of his brothers and his sister, explained this like Dad said. But I was guilty of the exact same thing that kid did. I wanted my kids to feel better about themselves. I wanted my 6-year-old boy to feel better about himself. So I tore these other 3 people to pieces. And there's one thing to objectively say, listen, that kid was a jerk. Later on that night, my son even said, I wonder if that boy was a Christian. And I said, well, he wasn't behaving like a Christian. But maybe he was. We all sin. We all do bad things. So we don't know. What he was doing wasn't very Christian, is what I said. Okay, I didn't tell him, though, that I'd been guilty of the exact same thing. But that's the quandary, teaching your children to be healthily cynical about what other people tell them. But still to have that good cheer and honestly a little bit of innocence about human nature. Because if people like that kid got over on my kids as they grew up, they would grow up to be beaten down people with tiny, tiny hearts. But if the attitude I showed came to dominate in them, they would become bullies with tiny, tiny hearts. So, not sure what the moral of this is exactly, except that, in fighting that evil, you can't be destructive and negative. You can't be tearing down. Yeah, that's the video. All right, y'all. Good night. Wanted to find